Alice Winton, Brandy Sneddon,
Brian Bonnet.
David Winton.
April Bonnet,
Donald Glisson.
Can you imagine if Jenks and Union merged schools and became one school called the Jenks Union School District and their mascot was the Trojans? Or how about if we no longer have Bigsby Public Schools, but instead we cheered for the Tigers at the Broken Arrow Bigsby Football Stadium? Sounds kind of weird to have these hyphenated school names like that, and it just doesn't feel right to not cheer for your own traditional mascot. This is especially true if you're graduates of the aforementioned schools and you grew up loving your school and community. Well, that's similar how students at the Ulaga Talala or Justice Teawa felt when their home schools were forced to consolidate due to a lack of educational funding. As a result of the last major education budget cut in 2015, Oklahoma legislators are, once again, trying to pass laws like Senate Bill 1382 to consolidate districts in order to reduce educational spending. So this begs the question, what exactly are consolidation laws, and how do these laws affect our schools and our Oklahoma budget? Therefore, I will start off by giving you a historical perspective on consolidation laws in Oklahoma. Then I'll discuss the common misconception of these consolidation laws. And finally, I'll discuss the impact that these consolidation laws will have on our rural schools and communities. First, consolidation laws in Oklahoma have been around since before statehood. In 1891, the legislature first began to organize our state into appropriate-sized school districts. According to the 2015 Oklahoma State Department of Education School Annexation Handbook, otherwise known as the OSDE Annexation Handbook, our policymakers in the late 19th century wanted our students to not have to walk 9 miles or more to their home schools. Remember, there were no cars or buses back then like they were today, so it was necessary to locate schools in proximity of these students. In the preface of the Annexation Handbook, it states that this noble intent to keep our students from spending half a day walking to and from school resulted in Oklahoma having more than 5,800 school districts. To put that number into perspective, we only have about 530 school districts in Oklahoma today. Just imagine if every school district in the early 1900s had a superintendent. There would almost be 6,000 superintendents in Oklahoma alone. One can infer that means there was a significant amount of educational spending on these superintendent salaries, on these 6,000 superintendent salaries. Since that time, legislators have been trying to reorganize our school districts as transportation opportunities have advanced, and walking is no longer the main source of transportation for our students. The OSDE defines the reorganization and the reconstruction of boundaries as consolidation or annexation. According to the recent letter by my district representative, Senator Brian Bingman, the main purpose of consolidation is to put money back into the classrooms for the students by eliminating the salaries of school superintendents, principals, and other administrative positions. The OSDE Annexation Handbook infers that early consolidation did, in fact, reduce overhead costs. But that's not hard to do when you cut more than 5,500 jobs. So it would make sense to keep consolidating our schools even more to save money, right? In theory, that makes sense, but that's not exactly the case anymore. So the second item I want to discuss is the prolific misconception about forced school consolidation laws. According to a 2003 study by a rural school and community trust organization, the misconception is that consolidation still results in significant savings. This is simply not true anymore. When we look at the historical perspective of consolidation laws a few minutes ago, it was unquestionable that by reducing 6,000 districts down to 500 resulted in massive educational savings. Again, in theory, this makes sense, but there comes a point when consolidation no longer becomes cost efficient. In fact, according to a news report by Lauren Fultonberg, there has been little, if any, evidence that new forced consolidation laws save today's taxpayers' money. Local Superintendent Brett Banker stated publicly in a recent Tulsa World article, quote, "In the grand scheme, consolidation won't work. It won't save money and it will jeopardize our quality of education." Even Senator Bingman and his staff have reported no projected future savings. In fact, according to a 2003 report by the Rural School and Community Trust Organization, some states have actually increased in expenditures after forced consolidation efforts. So not only does consolidation not save money, but there's proof that it causes more harm than good. And this leads us to my third point, which is forced consolidation laws have a negative impact on our rural schools and communities here in Oklahoma. For example, the OSDE Annexation Handbook suggests that smaller schools will no longer have a school board to advocate its specific needs. Most know that larger school districts have different needs than smaller districts when it comes to transportation issues, academic programs, and extracurricular activities. Alicia Priest, Oklahoma Education Association president, said recently, quote, "It's time for legislators to stop making these massive educational changes just for the sake of doing something. School consolidation bills like Senate Bill 1382 would not save the state significant money and stands to harm many Oklahoma communities." Another negative impact in every district has its own deeply rooted culture and lifelong traditions that gives the community a sense of pride. When a smaller school is annexed into a larger district, there is often a loss of identity for the smaller school. David Winton Sr., a former administrator of numerous small schools in Oklahoma, said in a personal interview, quote, "When annexation occurs, the rural district loses its name, its mascot, and its annual traditions. Essentially, their whole identity is gone, and this is devastating to the morale of the community and school." Now today, I began my speech discussing the early beginnings of forced consolidation laws. Second, I then shared with you the major misconception about consolidation laws. And third, I concluded by highlighting the negative impacts that these consolidation laws have on our rural schools and communities here in Oklahoma. Even though recent consolidation proposal bills like Senate Bill 1382 failed to advance out of Senate legislation last session, Senator Bingman makes it clear that, quote, the discussion about streamlining administrative costs is ongoing. In other words, expect to see more consolidation bills in the early 2017 legislative session. Until our educational leaders can provide evidence that drastic measures like forced consolidation will produce significant savings for our schools and still maintain harmony between our school and communities, then citizens should vote down any future consolidation bills. Unless, of course, you want your school to be the next hyphenated school district in Oklahoma.